Thank you, Peter. Now, Dr. Anand Ramanan, President of Sri Ramanasramam, is going to speak now. Please go ahead, Anand.
Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Dear brothers, sisters in Sri Bhagavan, once again, very glad to participate in the global Advent Day function. The amazing satsang groups all over the world have continued to build upon their wonderful performances over the years and continue to enrich the spiritual experience for the devotees. Friends, September 1st symbolizes a great day in the spiritual movement. By Bhagavan coming from the mother's lap to the father's lap in Arunachala, from Madurai to Tiruvannamalai, an ancient, arduous practice of Jnana Marga was easily adapted to the modern day settings thanks to Bhagavan's persistent demonstration of the teachings over the next 5 decades. The teachings of Bhagavan enables a busy banker, a modern day professor in an urban setting to easily practice this ageless direct path of Atma Vichara, which the ancient rishis had to spend years in forests and achieve self-realization in this birth and prevent the cycles of deaths and rebirths. Friends, this function also represents the start of the celebrations of the 100th anniversary of the formation of Sri Ramanasramam, which will continue till 2023 Jayanti, which is till December 28th. The programs, I will keep updating you. For now, we are going to come up with a souvenir. There will be pictorial books on Arunachala by David Gogoi. There will be revival of satsang groups all over India and in a few cities in the West and in Asia. There will be some satsangs, some seminars, which will be held in the big cities of India and in the West. I will be in touch with the various satsang groups and I will count on your participation, needless to say. This is a great opportunity for us to pay respect to Bhagavan, both by practicing his teachings and by opening the path for other newer devotees who should get the benefit of Bhagavan's teachings in this human birth. One of the responsibilities of being the ashram president is constant interaction with devotees who come to the ashram or communicate with us through the email. Today, I'd like to use this opportunity to discuss and state some ashram policies in a holistic way, and I welcome comments from the devotees too. The 3 things which I felt we can talk today, and I will try to quote Bhagavan's quotations and reasonings to why the ashram administration is following the solution to these three questions raised by devotees were very sincere, I must add. Um, and we will go along as we. The first one is, why are there no lectures in the ashram? Why are there no guided tours of the ashram? Why are there no guide like person, somebody who introduces Bhagavan's teachings to the new devotees who come to the ashram? And I get this on a continuous basis almost every uh, couple of hours. Now, the simple answer, which is not mine, and obviously it's been from for the last say 100 years, is that in Ramanasramam, especially after the Mahanirvana too, Bhagavan's presence is the living presence. On this part, we don't. There is no importance given to the physical form, especially of the Sadguru, and Bhagavan is categorically assured that he is not gone anywhere, and this is the constant living presence in this ashram. The other thing is, the devotee does not choose Bhagavan. Bhagavan chooses the devotee. There has to be some past janma punya for the devotee to come to Bhagavan. This avatar of Dakshinamurti is constantly guiding us in silence. In fact, Ramanasramam can be rightly called the temple of silence of Advaita Vedanta. Everywhere we are surrounded by the cacophony of noise, singing, and I mean, they all have a role. Please don't get me wrong. But one needs a pure place where silence is almost deafening, and this is a meaningful silence. It's not a silence one encounters walking through wilderness or 20,000 above in the sky. This is a spiritual silence, heavy with spiritual truth, heavy with ancient wisdom, which will cleanse the devotees and answer every question that they have, and much more. Here, the emphasis is on trusting the Guru and receiving his grace, which is ever flowing and continues to ever overwhelm us. It's the devotee's capacity, or as Bhagavan said, it's the size of the bowl that you bring in determines the quantum of the grace that one receives. On this path, as many old devotees have stated, there is no learning. In fact, there is unlearning. There is nothing new to be gained. All, as Bhagavan says, anything that is new, that is gained, will be lost, and it is not worth having. The ancient wisdom, the Atman, is already within us. All we have done is accumulated layers and layers of dust that the ego brings about. And here in Ramanasramam, we go about washing away the dust and then expose ourselves, the true Atman, to blaze forth. And as Adi Shankara says, it's like the cloud covering of the sun, like the ego that needs to go for the bright sunlight of the Atman to shine forth. And Bhagavan has also stated in many things, is like, he's specifically said that it's better to sit quietly in a corner and go back as a changed man while you listen to wonderful lectures and are still the same. Or, in fact, I mean, not he didn't say that, but add to our confusion. I would like to quote a couple of incidents from the books, and one is from Narayana Iyer. And once in Bhagavan's presence, many learned Sanskrit scholars were sitting in the old hall discussing portions of the Upanishads and scriptural texts with Sri Bhagavan. Bhagavan is giving them proper explanation, and it was a sight to remember and adore. At the same time, Narayana Iyer felt genuinely in the heart. He says, "Oh, how great these people are, and how fortunate they are to be learned and to have such deep understanding, to be able to discuss all these spiritual texts with Sri Bhagavan. Compared with them, what am I? Am I a zero in spiritual learning?" I felt miserable. After the Pandits had taken leave, Bhagavan turned to me and said, "What?" Looking into my eyes and studying my thoughts. Then, without even giving me an opportunity to explain, he continued, quote, "This is only the husk, the husk. All the book learning and the capacity to repeat the scriptures by memory is absolutely no use. To know the truth, you need not undergo all the torture of learning. Not by reading do you get the truth. Be quiet. That is the truth. Be still. That is God." Then very graciously he turned to me again, and there was an immediate change in his tone and attitude. He asked me, "Do you shave yourself?" Bewildered by this sudden change, I answered, trembling, that I did. Bhagavan goes on, "Ah, for shaving you use a mirror, don't you? You look into the mirror and then shave your face. You don't shave the image in the mirror. Similarly, all the scriptures are meant only to show you the way to realization. They are meant to practice and attainment. Mere book learning and discussions are comparable to a man shaving the image in the mirror." From that day onwards, the sense of inferiority that I had been feeling vanished once for all. In Day by Day, Devaraja Madaliyar quotes, quote, "As for reading books on Vedanta, you may go on reading any number of them. They can only tell you, realize the self within you. The self cannot be found in books. You have to find it out for yourself, in yourself. You wake up in the morning and look into the mirror, and the mirror shows you that you have a growth and that you have to get rid of it. You may go on looking into any number of mirrors. Every mirror will tell you the same, but no mirror can ever shave you. You have to shave yourself. Instead of wasting time looking into mirror after mirror, it is best to start shaving after having looked into the first mirror and knowing the truth. So also, all the books will tell you the same, perhaps in slightly different ways. Instead of wasting time reading books after book, why not realize for yourself what was obvious from the very first book? Friends, please, I want to categorically state that Bhagavan was never against Upanishad teachings or uh, any form of sadhana. In fact, he said these are um, accessories on the path to Jnana Marga. But all he guided us was getting trapped into the intellectual trap the ego can set for us. As Osborne has said in many of his editorials, that is the spiritual ego is the highest form of ego. The one who thinks that he does not have the ego ends up getting trapped by it. So that is the truth. While Bhagavan is saying that an um, an ounce of practice is worth 10 pounds of reading. And that's what the same same principle will continue, the same foundation on which Ramanashram was established and continues to grow will grow. Friends, if we cannot help you, at least we will not misguide anyone on the alternative path. Just as in the lifetime of Bhagavan, guidance came to all who turned to him, even to people who never visited the ashram, the same presence radiates from the ashram to this day at the foot of Arunachala. This is especially felt during the pujas, Veda Parayana, and during the evening Parayanas, and definitely during the morning and the night hours. The old hall constantly breathes soft, mellow life presence of Bhagavan. One feels the intimacy with Bhagavan the most in that holiest place on earth. The very air in the ashram is vibrant with his presence. The peace encompasses one and all. It is no passive peace, but a state of vibrant exhilaration. I'll quote from the gems. Realization is a result of the Guru's grace more than lectures and teachings. These are only secondary aids. Whereas the former is a primary and essential cause. Guru's grace is always there. Contact with jnanis is good. They will work through silence. A guru is not the physical form. His contact, remains even after the physical form vanishes. Friends, even during Bhagavan's time, the answers to the devotees' questions, and we are thankful for them because they act as guiding light for all of us. The answers were intensely direct and adapted to the questioner's character. As one devotee said, Bhagavan answered the questioner more than the question itself. When Paramahansa Yogananda asked Bhagavan what spiritual instructions he should carry back to the West from Bhagavan for the uplift of mankind, Bhagavan replied, quote, "It depends on the temperament and spiritual maturity of the individual. There can be no mass instructions." In spiritual instruction and transmission of the truth to the right devotee, according to Bhagavan, speech is the most inferior means of communication. In fact, as we all know, the sage of Arunachala is known as the great master of silent teaching. Bhagavan again quotes, "Silence is most powerful. Speech is always less powerful than silence. So mental contact is the best. Such mauna, silence, is not inertness, but great activity. It is the most powerful speech." And in talks, yet again, he quotes that speech is the great grandson of the original source and the grandson of silence. The silence, mauna, Bhagavan talks about, is not just the absence of speech. It is when the mind ego becomes silent, free from thought, and comes to rest in the self. If ego or the mind is fully absorbed in the self, it will not appear anymore and assert itself as a separate identity. Such a one in whom the ego has fully vanquished is called a jnani. He will abide in the self constantly. Only he who rests permanently in this silence can also transmit his teaching in silence. The disciple is yet not in this state, However, with the Guru's grace and with his constant effort, he will soon get the same level of spiritual truth as Bhagavan. This teaching can be summed up as an teaching that is passed on from the spiritual heart, the Hridayam, to the devotee spiritual heart, the Hridayam. Friends, Bhagavan's teaching is beautiful, unique, and direct. There is no encouragement of rituals, no secret mantra to be whispered in anyone's ears, no fancy handshakes, no hugging, no unusual postures. Bhagavan's teachings, there are no special requirements to meet, no examination by the Guru to test your worthiness. Bhagavan says that you are the self, you just don't know it. Being the self is being the pure being, pure experience. You have the power to discover the natural state of bliss inherent in you and abide as that. The highest, the purest, the most sublime teaching that leads to self realization is open to all. It is completely free. There are no special secret techniques or methods. In fact, in Day by Day, Bhagavan quotes, he says, quotes, no secret technique. It is all an open secret in the system. There are no middlemen. There are no successors, spiritual successors of Bhagavan appointed by him. Friends, we are all the spiritual successors of Sri Bhagavan. I will go on to the continuing the theme. Recently, even a Tamil scholar said, he reminded rather tersely, and sometimes you get the best teachings from such people. Said Anand, இது about the ashram, he said, இது பகவான் இருந்த ashram இல்லை, பகவான் இருக்கின்ற ashram. Means that Bhagavan, this is not the ashram where Bhagavan lived, but this is the ashram where Bhagavan continues to live. And he said it is blasphemous for somebody to sit and explain his own teachings in Bhagavan's presence. I will finish this thought by using an analogy which will appeal to the West Coast devotees, the Silicon Valley. A few years ago, I'd addressed them and said the administration was like the hardware people. But what I didn't mention was this hardware supports the best software that exists. The software that constantly updates itself, it's vibrant and it's unique. Each individual, each device that is us gets a unique form of software from Bhagavan. And our job is just to be that hardware to transmit that. The second question is recently, there have been a few books and which have been describing the experiences of the devotees and also have some anecdotes of teachings and it kind of seamlessly blends. Friends, I want to be very clear. These authors have tremendously good intentions. They are devotees of Bhagavan and they mean very well. But the ashram policy is, as being time, is anything, whatever we do, we should not confuse the devotees. We should keep them on the original path. And the publication committee headed by Professor Giridhar and ably supported by the editors of Mountain Path is any material, any book that we get, we do give it a, we read it, and then we analyze amongst ourselves. And the question we ask is this new material, or this material is anything new? Is it, of course, is it verifiable? And is this going to uh, tangentially dilute the teaching going forward? Or, and finally, is it going to help the devotee to take her or him closer to self-realization? The, the authors mean very well. They describe the devotees' raptures and experiences with Bhagavan. But the thing we have to realize that everything that we need to know Bhagavan is already in the beautiful books that have already been written. And Bhagavan never used his five senses. And so all these emotional descriptions can be if anything, can be the lapses of the memory of the author, or their extreme devotion to Bhagavan, where they owe to those devotees, where they want to bring the how the devotees were intimate with Bhagavan. But we have to remember the same our Bhagavan in talks did not answer many of the frivolous questions, did not interfere with the karma of the devotees, and except for the very major ones. And he let the prarabdha of the devotees burn itself out in his august presence. And the same Bhagavan has given a terse reply to a lady devotee when she complained about suffering. Quote, suffering is the way. But and to mean that the external life will only lead to the one that with pleasure will only end in pain. The only true life is the inward journey, and which leads one to the eventual moksha. And so this is the ashram's publication policy, and I welcome any comments on that. And I please pray to the devotees to stick and follow their, use what Bhagavan has quoted and refer to books that have been vouchsafed by him during his lifetime. He has personally gone through the first 10 or 12 original publications of the ashram, which one can find on the website. And finally, my generation, is like everything that was had to be done physically has been done by the forefathers and the ancient devotees. But friends, this our generation, I see myself, we are at a very pivotal time. Why I mean that is, like, if one traces the religious books of the ancient religions, the whatever books that came when the last apostle with the saint or the master started leaving the body is when mischief and which the quotations all came in, and there's a whole deviation of the what the master meant, and the centuries later, they won't forgive us if we as a group of devotees do not keep the vigilance. A small variance here can in rocket science lead to the rocket going several miles up the tangent, and we cannot let this happen to our Bhagavan. We cannot, him become the false Buddha or the Jesus. Please bear with me on that. The last topic is people ask us about social service, and what are the ashram doing about social service. And friends, we do have a responsibility, especially during this time, the post-pandemic, in the era of global warming, and where there are floods, where there's water shortages, where there is environmental disasters around us. Now, the social service the ashram will do will be the continuation of the activities which were started during Bhagwan's time, which are the dispensary, the Narayana Seva, the empowerment of women and children. However, we will we'll add a little more dimension where we'll try to support the environment of Arunachala, the supporting the columns, the lakes, the hill, to preserve the hill, help some primary education, the inmates and the local welfare improvement, and maintain the local temples. And on that progress, we know that the Sri Ramana Maharshi heritage in America will be a big support along with Arunachala Ashrama. Even in Ramanasramam, we are going to start a special charities organization which has been registered, but slowly it will take a shape where this will not interfere with the spiritual activities of the ashram, and this will be small incremental steps that we will take. And this will be based on the following quotations from Bhagavan, where we know that Karma Marga is only an adjunct to the Jnana Marga. It only prepares the mind for self-realization. It will never be the substitute for that. So this will also never be the prime activity of of Ramanasramam. But Bhagavan encourages in many ways. He says, act kindly towards the weak, render help to fellow beings when opportunity comes your way, without deliberately seeking opportunity to help, without any motivation for appreciation from others, or desiring self-satisfaction of feeling that we are good people. God alone can do good to others. We will never ever think that we are helping a man below us. The karma marga the ashram will do will only be a means of worshipping God in that man. Lastly, I will sum up the attitude of the administration. I'd like to state a story. Alexander the Great, well, in India, comes to know of a holy saint. He goes to him, and around midday, it's blazing sun, and he goes up a hill, and the saint is standing there looking at the sun. So Alexander feels, oh my God, this person is getting sunburnt and getting the. So he comes and stands in the way to give him temporary shade, and then ask him, what else can I do for you, O spiritual master? And this kind man, a kind saint, looks at him and finally says, please move out of the way. Do not obscure the path of the sun towards me. Similarly, the ashram administration will never obscure the relationship between you, the jnanis in making devotees, and the spiritual son, Bhagavan. And promise you that. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya, and forgive my going over the time. Thank you.
Srimati Sushila Ramanan, Mommy is going to chant the Sharanagati.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Sarana Gati Sarana Gati Parana Sarana Agati Ini Pugar Tunaidan Yede நீ புகழா இனி புக துணைதான் ஏது நீ உகலா சரண கதி ஸ்மரண யதி பல அருணா சல நீரை ரமண ஸ்மரண யதி பல அருணா சல நீரை ரமண கருணா வருணா ஸ்ரீ ரமண கருணா வருணா சரண கதி தருணம் ஏது அன்றோ உன் கருணை நோக்கவே தருணம் ஏது அன்றோ உன் கருணை நோக்கவே கால அரணமாக்கிடில் செய்வேன் கால அரணமாக்கிடில் செய்வேன் துன்பை நீக்கி என்பை அளிக்க என் அன்பா உலக துன்பை நீக்கி என்பை அளிக்க என் அன்பா என்னும் பராமுகம் என்னால் தாழாதைய ஸ்ரீவேதிய என்னும் பராமுகம் என்னால் தாழாதைய ஸ்ரீரமண சரண ஆகதி உன் பரண சரண கதி. ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீரமணாய. நமஸ்காரம்.
Thank you, Sushila Mami. Thank you very much.